Hello there, this is Carl from foundermatcha, and I'm here with Henry from Curacel, CEO of Curacel. We are now at the University of Westminster, and we've just been attending kind of like talent marketplace, where final year computer science students get connected with founders such as Henry. Henry, thanks for coming, really appreciate it.
For inviting me, Carl.
And
As always, it's a pleasure.
tell me your first thoughts of the event, man.
My very first startup event.
No, your thoughts of today's event.
Thought on today's event.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's great, right? Like, obviously, I can liken, the experience to mine when I was in final year in uni, and so the whole journey of being an entrepreneur, became live. In final year, working on like a few projects. And then it was a few of those projects. One of them really got an acclaim, won an award, or won a competition, and won a bit of money. And then that was this is the path to go. So so I kind of like being at the event and just seeing, engineers, just seeing people who are good in marketing. You can kind of like tell that.
It's interesting. It's an interesting bunch of people.
It's a good mix, and it's how it starts. The experience from now will decide if they go on to become founders or if they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, speaking of founders, let's talk about your founder journey, okay? So you're the CEO of Curacel. It's a very amazingly fast-growing insurtech company. You are YC Combinator backed. You are already operating in many countries all over the world. How many now?
15.
15 countries and counting, right?
Yes.
And your team is now how many people?
I think we're hovering around 50 at the moment.
50 people working for you now. Already profitable, I think.
Yes.
Amazing. All right, let's take a step back. Tell me about the journey from the beginning. What made you start on your founder journey?
Yeah,
Tell me
about so again, I've been a startup guy for forever. And there are always a lot of reasons why people start. For me, it was, I always wanted to be a founder, right? I think an entrepreneur, founder is the tech. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And, I always had the idea from when I was young. But again, my journey, I thought it was going to be, go work for a few decades in corporate and then decide to start. But, it ended up being, I actually started straight out of uni and then ended up doing a few odd jobs in between. But I'd say mine was driven by, this is my personal goal. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. When you ask the question, it wasn't like there was necessarily any entrepreneurs in my network growing up that I personally kind of wanted to be like, but I mean, I just had it from somewhere, it just came from somewhere.
If you could put your finger to it, what was it? Why? What is the big why?
It's like a really
why are you doing this?
It's a good question. Why do you, it's you can see the stories back then growing up of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And I think I was influenced by a few of those stories, and so on and so forth. But I think I'd wanted to start, I used to call it then conglomerates. Probably something influenced me when I was much younger, maybe a movie I watched or something like that, but I can't put a finger to it. But why do I still keep doing it? Obviously these days, I would say that it's the easiest way. I think for people who work in my company, I always say to them, it's the fastest way to grow personally. Right? So one of my biggest values is growing, high growth. I think working on a startup allows you to grow extremely fast. So I think that's one of the reasons why I still do it.
So it's it's not. Of course, we all love the end goal and we're all working towards something. But there's something about the journey that actually appeals to you.
It's the fastest way to grow. It's not the money, man. It's the easiest way to get rich is go work at a big company that pays you good money, right? It's before you get wealthy running a startup, you'd be broke for a few years for a while. And so it's not really money. But again, outside that, I like the idea of being able to create the future that you want to see, right? You could say, okay, cool, I want this to happen, and then you put in the work, and then so even in the industry we're working, there are things that for us was the theses that we put out a few years ago, that we've seen it. We've created it, it's materialized, it's happening, it's become a standard in the industry.
Yeah.
And we've sort of like moved on to say, okay, cool, we want to create this next standard. And so for me, that's one of the biggest drivers, is like being able to, envision what is the vision, is the putting a vision out, and then the experience of growing to become someone who, or people who can deliver on that vision.
Cool. All right, we have not delved into yet what it is that Curacel does. Why don't you give me the elevator?
High level.
Yeah.
So I've been like, for us, right? So a few years ago when we started, we wanted to, in insurance, right? Health insurance, just general insurance. When we started a few years ago, in most of the markets that we work in, which is emerging markets, insurance penetration is super low.
Yeah.
So my co-founder and I, we both have engineering backgrounds. So we said, hey, listen, we wanted to create a company that, could solve a global problem, or a problem that could start in the region and go global. But we also wanted to work on a problem that is impactful, right?
Yeah.
You didn't want to work on a different, like a game, or it's like a, nice to have, right? So we wanted to work on something that can be socially impactful in people's lives.
Yeah.
And health insurance for emerging markets is a problem. Like, people don't have insurance, only a fraction of people have insurance. And so we looked at that problem and we said, can we be part of the solution where you have countries or regions grow in terms of insurance penetration? Because insurance penetration is people have access to better healthcare, have protection for their families, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of like the problem we wanted to solve, or the vision we saw as a world where most people had access to protection for their families.
Yeah.
But we're engineers, right? We're technical people. We're not insurance people, or so it's like, how do you create value, right?
Yeah.
So whilst the people who work in policy will be creating policy to make that change, and people who working in the core industry would do technical stuff, for us it was, how do we build tech solutions that enable that industry grow faster or become solid faster?
Yeah.
And there were a few problems that were there, but we picked the one that allowed us to use AI to make processes super efficient.
Yeah.
And we thought this was valuable because if you can make a process efficient, you cut costs,
Yeah.
then the entities that own that operation would become leaner,
Yeah.
much more profitable, much more efficient, and so on and so forth. And so we started Curacel to help insurance companies or people who work in the industry become a lot more efficient around managing their costs.
Got it.
And then obviously it's grown beyond that. It's become, again, infrastructure. So our tagline is insurance infrastructure. So we are helping insurance companies deploy the right AI infrastructure to become more efficient, grow faster,
Excellent.
and so on and so forth.
Wow. Okay. And by the way, you used to be an engineer.
Yeah. So my background, I wrote code for. So even the first version of Curacel,
I had no idea
I
about
built the front end.
You didn't strike me as well.
Yeah. So I was technical.
Okay.
So before I launched my first business, I was a technical founder, writing only code. I knew nothing about business.
Okay.
So I learned business on the journey.
And did your journey start with applying for Y Combinator?
No.
Or was there already a lot of momentum before that?
We had some traction, for the current business, but again, obviously, I've done a few projects and businesses and so on and so forth that didn't quite take off. But for Curacel, when we got into YC, I mean, we'd done because again, we applied to YC as an international company, right? So an international company is a company that is outside the US. So the US, like companies in the US, and then companies that operate outside the US. So that's an international company. So international companies in emerging markets have a higher, there's typically a higher bar for YC. So whilst you will see a lot of the American companies and so on and so forth be in idea stage, you just started an idea for, the Indian companies or, African or Latin companies, that companies would need to have more traction because those markets are higher risk. So YC looks for other sort of validation that these guys will succeed. Yeah. So whilst the American market is big enough that you can say to these two founders who have just an idea, sure, we're going to back you because you know the market, you understand the market, but then when you're dealing with markets where you don't fully understand what the market is like, then you want to have indicators of that they're succeeding. So the traction needs to be. So we had a few customers.
You already had a few customers before you applied to Y Combinator.
We had a few customers, but for us as well, we we'd raised a pre-seed round and we were trying to do a seed round. And so for us, YC was valuable in terms of getting that round. It was also valuable in terms of we had a second product we were trying to do.
Okay, so you already had a pre-seed round before like
So we did had a pre-seed round, but almost like getting into YC because we were doing a different product. So we had a first product and then we were trying to do a second product. So when we got into YC, that product was at that early stage of, very little customers, very brand new. But they trusted that we had some revenue from previous existing product to be like, okay, cool, we trust that this guys can execute.
Okay, good. Because I want to go deeper into this because we're foundermatcha. We have a whole lot of founders and have a whole lot of people who would love to go into YC. So tell me how they should think about when they are ready and how to increase their odds of getting into this.
Yeah, I mean, and again, so obviously we applied to YC, we got in the second time, and I know friends who got in 6 times, right? 6 applications they kept applying, and then 7th time they got in, or the 6th time, a few of them actually. I mean, YC has an ideology, and that ideology keeps changing, right? So it evolves with where the market is, but I think the fundamentals is that they like to back hackers. So people who love to build. I mean, it'll be less likely that you just go and get an MBA and apply to YC, and then it's like, you're an MBA. Like you're kind of like you've been taught how to do. It's like for YC, they tend to like super young people who are just builders, right? And so back then, the application, I'm not sure if it still has it, but the application has this question which is, kind of like tell me a story about your past and the things you've built, right? And I still remember mine and like co-founders, and we talk about when we were like 17 or 18, we built like a radio, and then when you were 21, you built this, and so you just want to see that track record of you building things. Because they understand like in the journey, it's just going to be you iterating and building different things. Like the first idea might not work. You need to be able to pivot and build. So they want to kind of like, so I think the core of the YC, so like thesis of which founders to back, they like to back technical founders. And so if you are a founder and you're not technical, or you don't have any member of your team that is technical, you most likely will not get into YC.
Got it.
And for them, it's like that hacker mindset. Like we want to, and then a few other things they consider, right? So obviously, the nature of you as and then you don't have to be a programmer, right? So you just need to be technical in some way, right? So maybe you're in an industry or a doctor or something, but you have to be technical. They have to be able to look at you and be like, okay, cool, this guy is technical. He's deep in whatever he does. Because I have a friend, they built a company that, was fairly successful in terms of fundraising. He wasn't technical, right, from a coding perspective, but he had PhD in genomics and like, and stuff like that. So that is technical, right? And then so he came together with some other guys to build a product that was a biotech company, right? So that makes sense. I guess one final thing to kind of like mention would be that, so they want you to be technical, or they want to see that you can build. And they want you to be building something that they know would become big. So the second kind of like key important thing is how big the idea is in terms of where it's going. They also understand that, markets that don't look big right now will probably be big. Like for instance, the story of Coinbase with Brian. So, but they want to see that you have an insight as to why this will become big. So, with crypto back then, when they backed, the guy would be, okay, cool. Right now it's not big, but looking at the growth rate of how many people are buying crypto or whatever, this is going to become big. So the market of how big it is important. They back hundreds of companies in every batch. So obviously they're looking for what is big. But now if you're applying to YC right now, you just have to be working on AI.
Absolutely. Okay, those are really good points. So I heard the element about, look, you got to have a bit of traction. You are like, if you have a bit of traction, it will give you a leg up. If you are a hacker, or if you are really technical in your understanding of the area that you're working on, that will go a long way. Those are the two main key things that I hear. Excellent. Now, tell me a little bit about because you and your co-founder were both technical, but at some point you were the CEO and he was the technical.
But I mean, by the time we met, right? So I was technical, but by the time we met, I was already like going into. I was almost a business guy.
Yeah.
I was almost a business guy, and so I was looking for someone to build the tech and be the technical co-founder.
Okay.
Even though my background was tech, but I wasn't passionate about, sitting down and writing code. I was a lot more passionate about talking to customers, meeting people.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was technical, but I wasn't passionate about like sitting down for long swaths of hours and writing code. So I just knew that I wasn't going to do that for too long.
Okay.
So I needed someone who was going to be able to do that.
And then he was basically your first technical co-founder. He was your first hire, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. Again, obviously, over the period, I kind of like played around with a few people, employees and so on and so forth. So, but we met, right? So I think the story is, I'd gone through a few tech programs, and so for me it was obvious to increase your chances of succeeding. You kind of like want to have a co-founder. Again, some of the insights I have right now, because again, you're going to be working on an idea that would keep you trading.
Yes.
You want to make sure you have the key skills within the team, the early team, to iterate on any idea and go to market and succeed. So that's, if you're building a B2B thing, you need to have someone who can do sales, right? If you're building a B2C one, you need to have someone who can do some sort of like growth or marketing.
Yes.
And obviously, if it's a tech solution, then you want to have someone who can build the tech, right? Because the first idea might not work, the second idea might not work. You want to kind of have the skills to trade on that. So so I already had a sense that we're going to be the tech thing. I needed someone who could do that, even though I could do some of it. I needed someone who was really good at doing that, and they were going to be able to do that. And so I put the word out to like my network. I was like, hey, listen, I'm looking for XXX. And then people just started saying, hey, I have this friend who can do this. And then, one of those friends ended up being this guy, and like, we had lunch one day with a mutual friend, and they introduced us, and we're like, hey, we should like work on some things together. And then we played around for like a few months. Back then I also had like this thing where I was running an agency or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'd bring the projects and like, we work on them together, and so we built some level of, chemistry and trust and traction in terms of delivery, that it was obvious that sure, he can deliver, and then we kind of like ended up working on.
So basically, okay, so you were looking for a co-founder. Was Curacel already formed as an idea at the time?
Very early.
It was an idea.
Yes, it was kind of like an idea. I played around with a few early versions, something like that. It was a totally different idea, not what we're working on right now. It's like a totally different thing. Like I said, you go through iteration. So I'd gone through maybe iteration number 1.
But you were already sort of locked in on InsurTech, or were you locking in on Africa?
Like healthcare. Kind of like healthcare, emerging markets. Yeah.
You said, okay, I want to be a founder. You have a general direction that you want to go. You think I need a co-founder. You date a bunch of co-founders through your network. And then once you meet that person, you actually go through an exercise of something small together to build, just to see if you have chemistry, or how the chemistry of working together is.
I mean, it probably wasn't. Obviously, I understand this process a lot more now. So this is also how we hire people. We don't hire you without you doing any like project. We call them a trial in the company. But we figured out it's now standardized and institutionalized in Curacel that like, before you become full-time, you'd work on a few things on the side as a contractor, part-time, whatever, as a fractional. But back then, I wouldn't say it was a strategic, but it just kind of happened, So we kind of had the Curacel thing. We're going to work on it, but then a few other things just were on the side, and then we're like, hey, let's do that. And we did it, and then it worked, and then it was organic to some extent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So looking back, because foundermatcha, we're all about helping founders find their first lead engineer or potential technical co-founder. Tell me through your journey. What are the things that founders should look out for when they try to find that first technical partner?
Yeah.
How to think about the problem?
I mean, obviously first technical partner. So obviously you want to find someone who who's super passionate about what they do, right? Because if they're going to be like a co-founder, you guys are probably going to do this for a few years. And so you don't want someone who's kind of like just, going to do it for a few months and then decide that they...
How to look out for that?
I mean...
How to look out for, because everybody on the first interview or the first quote-unquote interview presents their best selves.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, which is why it has to be to some extent, there has to be that organic phase. I mean, you can kind of like ask it as a question, right? So you kind of want to understand what are people's long-term or mid-term goals.
Yeah.
So one of the questions we always ask, or I'll always ask in an interview would be, okay, cool, what's your 5-year, what's the plan?
Yeah.
I mean, people can always lie and all that.
Yeah.
But you wanna have it on record. You wanna validate that someone is like, okay, cool, for the next 5 years I wanna do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, life can always move them in any direction, but like you wanna have them be committed, even if anything happens, but they are committed to okay, this is what I wanna do.
Yeah.
Obviously you can find other ways of asking it to tease it out without being kind of like spooking them that you're asking that, but you just want to figure out the overall direction of where someone is going.
Got it. Yeah.
And then you want to, if there's alignment, because obviously if you're going to be working on a company, I mean, the kind of like lowest case scenario for a company to succeed, even if it gets acquired, is anywhere between like 5 to 7 years. So you kind of like want to be on the track, right? Like if the biggest sort of like, the biggest stat on why companies fail or why companies shut down is the founders just gave up, right? It's like the founders moved on to other things.
Right.
And so, so you want to validate that the person, whatever co-founder,
there's an element of perseverance
that they're passionate about it. That's their career path.
Yeah.
They want to do that. Like they're not like, oh, I'm waiting for my Morgan Stanley job and now you're here. So let's build this thing. And then when I get my job, I'm going to go do the thing, right? So it has to be kind of like be someone who's on, but it's also very hard again when people are early, sometimes they don't know. So it's a tough nut to crack.
It's a tough nut to crack, right? So there's a few themes that I hear in our conversation. The first of all is that, perseverance, you want to look out for some elements of perseverance, but typically you need to be engaged with somebody over a different lifespan to be able to really see if somebody has that persevering element in his character. That's the first thing.
You just want to, that's kind of like the unstated thing that you're looking for, but you just kind of like want to just ask someone, okay, cool, Carl, what's your plan? What are you up to? And then Carl says, Henry, foundermatcha, next 5 years, I'm going to want to build this thing.
Yeah.
And so you get that confirmation that they want to do this.
Yeah.
Because you can say, hey, listen, I'm kind of like doing this now, but it's kind of like on the side.
Yeah.
Before I do something else, then that's not the person for you, right? So you kind of want to find someone, and they might not want to be a co-founder, but it's someone who's super passionate about this tech or this type of tech, or and you kind of like tease out, the passion by like how much time are they spending doing it? Like it's like coding all weekend.
Yeah.
What have you built? Like, oh shit! It's like you want to have someone who's like all in and all that. But I mean, this is on the right hand side. Extreme end, all in.
Yes.
I mean, you can find indicators, but you just want to find someone who's super passionate about what they're doing. It doesn't have to be perseverance, because again, when they're early, young founders, like it's probably not that easy to find that, because they need to do something long. They've only been in school, or it's not that many things that they can do, that they've done that shows you how perseverant.
But maybe it's grit.
Grit is maybe the word.
Right.
But how do you figure out grit? Can you figure out grit from education though?
Well, that's interesting, because one of my favorite books is this book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I've heard of the book.
She was a TED Talk speaker, and I'm gobbling that book up. And then she actually claims there's actually a test that you can give to people and then measure grit.
And I have the book. I have it in my library, but I haven't read it. I need to look at it.
I'm gonna give it to you.
Okay.
I'm gonna get you that book. That's my gift to you.
Thank you.
Okay, and all right. So let's go. Okay, let's go back to the Y Combinator story. I mean, like presumably, tell us, is it all that? Yes.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth it. Man, I think that they're the most successful accelerator in the world, man. It's
It opened up so many doors for you, and it got you your seed round and everything.
Yeah, no, it did. It did. But again, I mean, at this point, like I have done so many programs.
Yeah.
Whether that's accelerators, pre-accelerators, I've done a few.
Yeah.
And so I have I have a framework around what, which one is good for what.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so YC is pretty good at giving you an ambitious network,
Yeah.
and definitely helping with fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously people would prioritize the fundraising because it's a short-term gain, but I'd reckon the most valuable part of it is the ambitious network.
Okay.
Obviously you went through Oxford, so you kind of get a sense of like when you were in a network of like very ambitious people. And so I think one of the valuable things that kind of like going through the program is, either when you were in the program, in the cohort, because everyone else is probably has some ambitious project they're working on, probably working harder than you or trying to work harder than you. So I think that's a much more valuable but intrinsic value that isn't as obvious.
Yeah.
And then obviously that value scales as you keep going. Let's say you go with a network of people at seed or pre-seed, and then at Series A. If you're kind of like engaged in that community, in that network, by the time you get to A or whatever growth rounds, you will still have that network of people who, at that stage, you are still ambitious. So, because as a founder, me and because again, we spent some time, the network and kind of like what you listen to and the framework and kind of like the ideas you hear when you're building is super valuable. So I think the YC experience, that's a much more valuable thing, is being able to get into that network and kind of grow with that network than the fundraising, because obviously the money will run out eventually. But the network, because the founders, like we kind of like went through that. We have
the network, and it's also of course that Y Combinator stamp on you.
The badge
opens doors for you so that you can meet
not so much, right? I mean, the badge, obviously, I spend a substantial amount of my time in the US, and it's a well-known brand, in that ecosystem, but I wouldn't say it's as valuable in like a lot of the other markets, right? So for instance, we do this business in the Middle East. If you're dealing with big companies, they don't know what YC is. So it's like, it's not valuable to them. So I'd say that it's valuable in, startup networks, investor networks, more America. And then the more you go into like certain industries, you're a B2B founder, like your customers aren't going to sign you because you went to YC. They don't know who YC is. But investors it might be a good stamp for investors.
All right. So we talked a little bit about Y Combinator, how to apply, how to stand out. We talk a little bit. Give me a few nuggets of tips for fundraising. What do you think?
I mean, there's a good article. There's a good PG article, Paul Graham's article. This is the founder of YC.
Paul Graham.
He has a few articles on YC, and obviously I'll send you the link. Maybe you can put it in the notes.
We'll do that.
But like PG would always say, fundraising is about, telling a story of the work that you're doing, right? So if you're doing important work, then your story will be, so he always say people tend to do fundraising like, you're carrying the whole thing and the company on your back, but not really the company. It's carrying you on the back, on its back, right? It's like you've got a good story, a good problem statement or whatever, right? And obviously there's the part about telling a good story, right? That's a different thing. But in fundraising, you need to kind of like have a compelling problem or like whatever, like the core thing that you're working on needs to be, it would make your fundraising easier. Again, there's also the thing with investors, where investors can like just go wherever the wave is going at that particular time. So right now, obviously everyone is all in on AI, and so on and so forth. So that is not to say, right? PG would always say, when you have an idea, only work on things that you're super passionate about. Right? Because the wave will always move. And so you want to be working on, because again, you can end up working on something that is hot, but you're not passionate about it. And if you're not passionate about it, you're going to give up.
Absolutely.
Right? So the most important thing is you're going to want to work on something you're passionate about. But then what you work on is obviously one of the key ingredients of your story. For fundraising, obviously we're talking about fundraising. The second thing on top of that, I would say, would be the storytelling. Because fundraising is really all about like selling a story, right? And you know, the more compelling your story is, the more, you know, other people will believe it. And what would make your story compelling would be if you believe your story.
Yeah.
And if you're actually working on something you care about.
Yeah.
You know, so if someone is working on something that is they don't care about, it was just kind of like their MBA project, they don't care. It's like put the business plan together.
Yeah.
It would be obvious as well, right? So I'd say that those are it.
Got it. What about, okay, you're a B2B insurtech company.
Correct.
What are some cool tips for other B2B people in the insurtech world? What are the nuggets there?
I mean, B2B, let's say B2B sales, nuggets for B2B sales, problem.
Yeah.
You know, don't sell. Don't sell, just understand the customer's problems,
Yeah.
right? Right, I'll say that that's one of the biggest.
You seem to have a good marketing machine around you, so that to help you create this no-sell kind of environment. That what they come to you? Or
I mean, no, not really. You would find them, but don't sell, right? As again, obviously there are different cadres or categories of B2Bs. Like, you know, you might be on the SME, MSME, or the enterprise side.
Yeah.
You know, but one thing you want to do, obviously, I reckon we're talking to early stage people. You're still probably pre-product market fit and so on and so forth. So yeah, so you kind of like want to spend a lot more time in discovery and just understanding the customer than like selling.
That's it at your early stage, right? Yeah. So if you're an early stage B2B kind of, or maybe an even insurtech kind of thing, it sounds to me that you almost like need to use your personal charm to be able to get conversations going and have those conversations with a no-sell attitude.
Yes, don't sell.
Got it.
Just even if like you don't have a network, right? Like, but you know, even if you don't have a network, you get into the first conversations.
Yes.
Don't sell.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, just understand the problem. You know, it's like, okay, cool. So it's called customer development, right? Yeah. I mean, very few people, even when you get to a company where we've been doing sales for a few years, we still encourage our commercial team, don't sell in the first 2 meetings.
Yeah.
What is your problem?
Yeah. And you still adhere to that motto today?
Try to, yes. Because that's the only way you kind of like, because with B2B, I mean, you have a product that you've built, right? You kind of like want to sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually you will sell it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you understand your ICP, you understand enough of the problems.
Yeah.
But if you're just launching less than a year, less than 2 years, you don't understand the customer enough. So you need to spend a lot more time just like understanding people, just talking to them. Eventually at the end of that, you will have a sale. But I would say one of the biggest insights would be, don't sell.
All right, man. You left us a lot of nuggets, man. Thanks a lot. Tell me about Curacel. What can we expect from Curacel in the next 12 months, man? What's the growth trajectory?
I mean, AI agents. Obviously, we're an AI company.
Yes.
So we're very excited about like a few of the products we're putting out.
Yeah.
But it's still AI. It's AI.
So anything we can expect soon?
I mean, we're putting out. You guys are not in the insurance industry, so you're not my customers. But for the guys in the industry, we're building a few exciting tools to help them do better customer success, better sales. You know, everyone knows the AI agents, everyone knows ChatGPT. So again, we're working on a few products that take those use cases and put it in insurance and help them do better customer success.
Excellent.
It's kind of like different from our existing products are much more niche, much more technical. So we're kind of like going in a bit more like general. Everyone understands the customer success agent. Everyone has them. So even if you don't need to do claims or fraud or whatever, you need to do customer success.
Which countries are the 15 countries that you're in now?
So our biggest markets are Saudi Arabia, that's in the Middle East, Egypt, Morocco, a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, so Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. We've got a few of the francophone ones, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Zambia, South Africa, a little bit of the US.
Any new countries that you're penetrating soon?
US.
US is next.
A little bit in US eventually.
Okay, very good. I'll be looking out for you. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, man. It's good to chat.